The D.C. Madam, Deborah Jean Palfrey, takes her own life here in the Tampa Bay area, but will her death be the final chapter of her infamous Black Book? Good evening. I'm John Wilson.
And I'm Kelly Ring. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And first on Fox tonight, the case of the infamous D.C. Madam ends in Tampa Bay. Deborah Jean Palfrey hanged herself behind the mobile home where her mother lived. This is just off US 19 in Tarpon Springs, right off Lake Tarpon. Fox 13's Craig Patrick is live in the neighborhood to tell us what brought her here and what happens next. Craig.
Well, she was staying here with her mother, and neighbors didn't really know who she was, and now they can't believe it.
Federal agents say she sold sex to hundreds, if not thousands, of Washington rainmakers. Her list of client phone numbers took up more than 40 pounds of paper.
They did not care whether or not identities of the clients were revealed.
Deborah Jean Palfrey said she did nothing wrong. She said if her escorts traded sex for money, they never told her.
I operated a sexual, albeit legal, business for 13 years.
And as she waited for her sentence, she flew to Tarpon Springs, Florida to stay with her elderly mother. Neighbors heard about the madam and they knew the Palfreys, but they never made the connection.
I heard somebody else say that. What do they mean by that, the D.C. madam?
Neighbors just knew Blanche Palfrey had lost her husband and was ill with heart problems. They thought her daughter Deborah was staying here to care for her. Then they heard Blanche Palfrey scream.
She says, come to help me. My daughter, something happened to my daughter.
The mother said she took a nap, woke up around mid-morning, saw a bike had been removed from the backyard shed, and she looked inside and found her daughter.
Upon entering the shed located on the west side of the residence, Blanche Palfrey discovered her daughter, Deborah, had apparently hung herself using a nylon rope from a metal beam on the ceiling of the shed.
Oh, how heartbreaking. That must be for a mother to find her daughter. My God.
This is a retirement community, and Palfrey's suicide really shook up the neighbors.
And we all look out for each other. And it's bad.
It breaks your heart to know that people could give up their life like that. I mean, there was other ways for her to go, to upset her mother that way.
In the past, Palfrey said she couldn't deal with prison because she feared abuse or retribution, but she has also said she would not kill herself. Police say she left 2 suicide notes at her mother's home. They will not discuss the contents.
And police say the mother knew that her daughter was upset. She was facing more than 5 decades in prison for sentencing in July, but she did not think that she was distressed to the point of suicide. Police say they also found a journal in her mother's home, but like the 2 suicide notes, Kelly, they will not go into the details on that.
Of course. Now, does this bring the case of the D.C. Madam to a close?
Well, it certainly seems to. There's obviously going to be no sentencing at this point and apparently no further recourse. But remember, she had a black book with more than 10,000 names in it, more than 40 pounds of paper. And we don't know for sure whether or not she may have implicated more people, more names in these suicide notes or writings that authorities have not yet released.
All right. Thank you. Craig Patrick reporting tonight for us. Thanks, Craig.
Well, quite a few political careers were rocked by the allegations against the woman's prostitution ring there. And Fox 13's Mark Wilson has been looking into that. Mark?
Yeah, most notably a U.S. senator and an official from the U.S. State Department. Take a look. Prosecutors say one of Palfrey's clients was Senator David Vitter, the first-term Republican from Louisiana, married with 4 children. Last year, he made a public apology for what he called a very serious sin. The scandal ended the career as well of State Department official Randall Tobias. He was a Deputy Secretary of State, and he was in charge of the government's foreign assistance program that gave money to countries to help fight AIDS. He was forced to resign after that scandal broke. But throughout her trial, Palfrey denied running a prostitution ring and said she says the women who worked for her were what she called contractors who helped men live out their fantasies in their homes or even in 5-star hotels.
Both the independent contractors and the clientele were upscale and came from the more refined walks of life here in the nation's capital.
Yeah, now Palfrey would have been sentenced in July, and she was facing around 6 years in prison, but she swore she would never spend a single day in prison. Tonight, a Washington writer named Dan says that she told him she would, quote, commit suicide before going to prison.
All right, Mark, thank you. Our coverage of the death of the D.C. Madam continues online. There's an exclusive interview with her from last year, in fact, when we did it, and we'll have more background on the case there and some of her well-known clients as well. Look on the homepage of our website, myfoxtampabay.com.
And